What's up, guys?
Hey.
We are back with another reaction.
Yes.
What are we doing today?
So today I figured we would do the new song from Oliver Anthony. It's called I Wanna Go Home.
So, I did not listen to this, but I did see that it was released either
Y-
yesterday or today or something.
Yeah, I didn't listen to it either. I think it might have been yesterday, maybe. And just for anyone who is new here, the way that we work is we honestly do not listen to the song as some other channels do and get like information beforehand. Like we go into it completely blind. Like I have no idea what the song is about besides it being titles I Want to Go Home. I intentionally, and he probably doesn't know. Do you know?
What?
Like I intentionally like did not look at any articles about it or anything, not even the lyrics.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, that's pretty much how we do things here. Like we go into a blind because it's a reaction. Like we are giving you an honest, legit reaction.
Yeah,
So,
sometimes we'll bring up a song that the other person knows, and it's not much of a reaction. It's more of a breakdown, you know?
yeah. Sometimes our interpretation is going to be different from maybe what the artist intended. It's just what we're hearing and
Yeah,
how we interpret it.
yeah.
Yeah. But with that being said, this video is sponsored by Carnivore Snacks, which is one of my absolute favorite meat snacks and one of my favorite snacks. And these are the bison sliders right here. I'll show you what they look like really quickly. They look like little meat potato chips. This one's a little broken, but that's okay. They're like literally perfectly salted and absolutely delicious. I would eat one to show you that I eat them because someone like challenged me a few weeks ago and was like, "You don't even eat them." Like, yes, I do. I love them. I'm just not gonna eat them on air because I'm not gonna sit here and have you watch me chew.
All these
Yes,
empty bags.
they're all empty. That is my evidence. But I love the bison sliders. I love everything. The sliders are my favorite. The lamb sliders are my absolute favorite. And they have a new Wagyu line, which you should definitely check out if you're into Wagyu. And you can use our coupon code WithSmith, sorry, for 15% off your first order. And the link is in the description below. Also, like to point out, it is Joe Rogan's favorite snack, as he says right here. I can't circle it with my finger. It's not working like that, but he's circling it with the mouse. So yeah, definitely check that out if you like meat and you like snacks. Who does not like meat and snacks? And we are also sponsored by SeatGeek, which is my absolute favorite website to get tickets for, whether it's for comedians, concerts, sporting events, like literally anything, they have a ticket for it. And you can use our coupon code WithSmith for $20 off your very first purchase. And the link is in the description below. And you click the link, it'll probably populate with your area and show you all different types of events going on where you are living. So, yeah. Oh, and follow us on social media channels if you want to. That's our handle. But aside from that, yeah. So let's check out I Want to Go Home. Oh, interesting to note. It looks like he's in the same area he was for Richmond, north of Richmond.
So there's two things I want to say before we start.
Sure.
One, did he release two songs? Guys, I'm pretty sure I saw the way I heard about this song was on Twitter. A few people posted about it, and I could have sworn it was a different title.
Huh.
So I don't know if he released two
I
or
didn't see more than one. I don't know.
interesting. And then secondly, I will say so this is obviously his second song since he got famous.
Yeah.
So it's very it's so hard to follow up on a hit. Most people have zero hits in their lives.
But then, like,
The rest,
we don't know much about him. I don't know how long this song has been out for him. Like, I
no.
don't know if it's just gaining popularity now or if it's brand new. Like, I literally looked up nothing. I have no idea.
So that's true. I'm assuming it's the same, he probably recorded all of these before he got famous, right? And then it took off, but it seems like this is the song just based on the fact how my social media it's coming up. Like this came up after his
Yeah.
first one. I'm assuming this is what's getting pushed out now. Either way, my point is just to say that it's very hard to have more than one hit. So it's going to be very interesting. I mean, he has an incredible voice, so
Yeah, and his content really resonates with just the general population.
yeah.
And it might have been recorded at the same time. I can't tell if he's wearing the same shirt from Richmond, north of Richmond. I don't remember, to be honest.
I don't either.
No, I don't know. But let's give it a listen. We do pause here because we like to break down the lyrics and really understand what we're listening to.
Let me see if I can get the
So bear
lyrics.
with us. Oh, you can pull up the lyrics maybe if they exist.
Yeah, let me see.
Yeah, just Google it. See if anyone's got them. Um,
It, okay.
you got them?
I think so. Assuming these
They
are
could
right.
be wrong because the song's like brand new, I believe. Let me know if it's not brand new.
Yeah.
But if it's not brand new, it's just gotten popular.
Yeah.
So let's give it a listen now.
Well, if it weren't for my old dogs and the good Lord, they'd have me strung up in the psych ward. 'Cause every day living in this new world is one too many days to me. Son, we're on the brink of the next world war, and I don't think nobody's praying no more, and I ain't saying I know it for sure. I'm just down on my knees begging the Lord to take me home. I wanna go home. I don't know which road to go. It's been so long. I just know I didn't used to wake up feeling this way, cussing myself every damn day. There's always some kind of bill to pay. People just doing what the rich man say. I wanna go home. Now Ford.
Okay, perfect place to pause. So definitely use those lyrics because I had a little trouble understanding what he says in the very beginning of the song.
Yeah, here if you want to take
So
your phone.
goes, well, if it won't
Weren't, won't.
Well, if it weren't for my old dogs and the good Lord, they'd have me strung up in the psych ward. 'Cause every day living in this new world is one too many days to me. Okay. So he's basically saying if it weren't for like his dogs, like I believe he means his actual
I
dogs,
think
like
so.
his pet
Based
dogs,
on
like little puppy
and
right
the
there,
yeah, I think the last video there was 2 or 3 dogs in
like
it.
3 dogs. And God or Jesus. So he's saying if it weren't for them, like he would be put in a psych ward. So he'd be crazy. Like they're what keeps him sane and what keeps him grounded and what
Mm-hmm.
keeps him from just like losing his mind over just all the shit that goes on in the world.
Yeah, and his life, all that. Yeah.
And then his because every day living in this new world is one too many days to me. So he means this new world, like all of the changes that have been going on. I mean, you could even think like all the
So from
it's
the
a very broad statement.
well, so the context is from his previous song, living in a new world with an old soul. Do you know what I mean? So like
Yeah, and
modernity, like the way the culture is these days. You know
like
what I'm
all the
saying?
changes that have happened. I mean, we could identify so many things that have changed in the past like 20, 30 years. Like,
So it's very sad and dark.
yeah,
Those
because
it's very hopeless. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So we're only
it's melancholy. Even the strings are like very like sad.
so the content is so far it's similar to the Richmond north of Richmond, which is, it's talking about heavy stuff and like fed up with
But that
society.
song had a little more anger in it. This one's just more sad.
I agree. It's like seemingly hopeless. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there is
So
no hope.
yeah. So then he goes, Son, we're on the brink of the next world war, and I don't think nobody's praying no more. And I ain't saying I know it for sure. I'm just down on my knees, begging, Lord, take me home. I want to go home. I don't know which road to go. It's been so long. I just know I didn't used to wake up feeling this way. cussing myself every damn day. There's always some kind of bill to pay. People just doing what the rich men say. I want to go home. So, on the brink of the next world war, I mean, I could definitely agree with that and see that, like, especially with what's been going on in Ukraine, and then just other countries having like atomic weapons, and then just everyone just like, you're more political than me. So,
You know, I think she's referring to Ukraine and Russia, their war,
but just
which
like
we're
also
backing.
just what's the word I'm looking for? Just like angst between all the countries.
Well, yeah, because so we're
Like
backing.
turmoil, like just things going on in all different
Well,
directions.
it's so that's the war in Ukraine is a global
Yeah,
proxy
it
war
is.
right now. We're backing them. China seems to be backing Russia. Speaking of that, well, actually not unrelated. Do you remember like a month ago there was that coup in Russia? There was like a mercenary force that started storming. They were on their way marching up to
I think
Moscow to
so.
overthrow Putin. So there's this guy who's named
It didn't happen
the
though.
Wagner Group, right? And there's this, he used to be like a chef or something for Putin, and he's the head of this mercenary group. So they're
Mhm.
literally a paid army, right? They're not a state army, they're a paid army. So just today, his plane with 10 people on it went down and crashed. There's videos of it. People said it the second that happened, Putin supposedly forgave him, sent him to Belarus, and everybody's like, he's dead. He's a dead man walking. And literally, his
Yeah,
plane just went down today, and there's a
that's
video of it.
crazy. But
Anyway,
aside from that, it's like also other countries too. Like just they're just
so
like discontent.
well, no, there is. I mean, you look at the Middle East, like
Yeah.
Israel, Palestine. There's conflict everywhere. I was just saying, like the most glaring thing today is
Yeah,
the
it
Ukraine
is.
war because all the other countries are they're proxy, they're involved.
And then I don't think nobody's praying no more. I mean, we all know that. There's been like a severe abandonment of religion.
Yeah.
We discussed that in the last video too. His last, the Richmond, north of Richmond, how people actually like shun religion and they don't want it in schools anymore. They don't want to teach about God. They don't want to teach about religion. They want it nowhere in anything because when you turn to religion, you won't buy into all this other bullshit.
Yeah, it's for sure. We become a much more secular culture, regardless of the religion. Apparently, with the exception of I think it's Islam, in the United States, all of the religious numbers are going down,
Yeah.
becoming more secularized.
Celebrating the major holidays because like presents.
Yeah.
So like celebrating Christmas but not going to church, celebrating Hanukkah but not going to temple, celebrating any other holidays of any other religion but not actually participating in the religion itself.
Yeah, so it's an obvious claim that he's making that if more people prayed and had some sort of faith in God, that
We
the
wouldn't be
world
where we
wouldn't be
are.
as messed up as it is. Yeah, which
I
I think I
agree.
agree too. Yeah,
Well, especially for our country. I mean, there are other countries that are definitely still very religious.
for sure. But the Western
Yeah, like where
civilization in
we're living.
general is like, yeah,
Um, so he's begging the Lord, take me home. I want to go home. So you could interpret this two ways. You could think that he wants to like kill himself,
yeah,
or he wants to go back to when things were better. Like,
yeah.
take me home. Like, home would be when everything made sense, when everything was, not constant turmoil and craziness every which way you look. Like, when people were more religious, when people were kinder to one another, when we were happy.
You know what's interesting though? So I agree 100%. It does invoke the idea of wanting to die, right? And be home with God, whoever it is.
Well, because
But
Lord, take me home. Whenever someone says that, you know what they mean by that.
yeah,
But I
so
think he just wants to go back to the times that he's longing for.
so the problem is when were those times, right? So Michael Malice, the political comment.
Everyone has a different year. Like I would say, like I was born in the 90s. I would say the 90s and early 2000s were far better
So
for like just politics and like canceling people and like not being able to like Google things and not getting like just tons of misinformation. I feel like that period of time
So
was better
that's
than
the thing.
this for me.
So Michael Malice, he's a famous anarchist political commentator. So he talks about that people always talk about that, oh, things weren't like this when I was a kid. And his argument is, no, it was. You were just a kid. You were oblivious to it. And the media has always been as corrupt. The politicians has always been as corrupt. It's always been like that. Like, when is this magical time when things weren't this way? And I think it's a solid argument. I think we were kids. We were oblivious to society and culture and political problems. And it's like we just had a smaller world. You know what I mean?
But even if you ask people who are older, it definitely wasn't as crazy as it is today.
I think
Like
that's a
I could
fair
even
argument.
go out on a limb and say like what they're trying to teach in schools today, trying to have like kids, middle school kids, elementary school kids with the books graphically depicting sexual acts between men and women, between men and men, between women and women. That would have never flied in the 90s. We would not have done that.
So that's
Like that's one example alone. Like
that's a fair argument to say that things were never as bad as it is today. They were always bad, but they were never this bad. So I think that's a fair argument.
and the argument is really his argument like we've abandoned religion. That's like completely exactly what leads to shit like this.
So my only point in even bringing that up is I'm wondering if he's not. Let's assume Oliver Anthony's not talking about wanting to die, right? What would home be? It's like, was it when he was a kid, or was it a time when he wasn't even alive? Do you know
A
what I
time when
mean?
things made sense.
But I'm saying, was he ever? How could it be home if he never lived in that period? Do you know what I mean?
I'm sure it's
That's
a
why
time from his life, what he's experienced, I would think.
in
But that's just my
childhood.
interpretation of it. Like, could he possibly be talking about just wanting to go home to when, like, the times that he longs for, maybe? Is he basically saying he wants to die because society is so terrible right now, maybe?
Or does he want to literally go home to his physical house and shut himself out from the world? Do you know
That's
what
a
I
good
mean?
one. Because he goes, I don't know which road to go. It's been so long. I just know I didn't used to wake up feeling this way, cussing himself, bills to pay, people doing what the rich man say, he wants to go home. So, hmm.
Yeah, so okay. I just know I didn't used to wake up feeling this way. So that's another like
So yeah,
so,
you're right. Maybe he could just want to be in his house and just be with his dogs and be with God.
so I don't know. My first thought when he said take me home, it was death, which again,
Yeah.
we could be totally wrong, but
Yeah.
that was my first thought, right? So I didn't used to wake up feeling this way. So we could be talking about feeling the way he does about
So
the
that
state of,
means that there was a period of time when he was happy with the way things were in the world,
yeah.
or at least not as upset over them as he is now.
Yeah, but so that makes that line in particular makes me think of, depression, right? That he's feeling depressed when he wakes up and he's just like, and then what's the next line? Cussing myself every damn day. So it's interesting. Is he so the this song and his other song is about the outside world, right? All the problems with it. But now he's cussing himself.
Well, I also don't know if that's like an expression for like if you're just sitting there being like, fuck this, fuck that. You know what I mean? Like, we're from New York. We don't even say the word cussing.
Cursing.
So, yeah, we
But
say like cursing or like swearing. But like, I don't even know if cussing myself, if that means like he's just cursing at the world or if he's saying like, fuck myself, like, fuck me.
no,
I don't know what he means by this.
so my interpretation, I think he is cursing himself, which makes me wonder why. You know what I mean? And
Mm,
then, so the next line after that is there's always some kind of bill to pay. So
always.
maybe
Just
that's
fed up.
it never, it's never ending. It's like, oh, what is wrong? Why don't I make enough money? Why am I, whatever it is, why don't I have a better job?
Yeah.
Whatever.
And then people just doing what the rich men say, I want to go home. So again, that's a nod to Rich Men North of Richmond and the sentiment of that song. So in our interpretation of that song, we thought he was talking about just like people in the North in general. We understood that it was also about the government in Washington, D.C.
Well, yeah, we
But
said it was about DC,
yeah,
but
we
I
did.
do think it's a sentiment of what now, whether he means that or not, you know what I mean? I mean, he's the songwriter, he's alive, he could say what it means.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, because that song in particular, it's interesting because the other one, Richmond, North of Richmond, he's talking about a slew of topics, right? And he's talking about the DC elites, but then like the lines about the people abusing welfare, those aren't politicians from DC. Do you know what I
No,
mean? Or fat people
but I
eating
wouldn't
on the
call them
welfare.
rich men either.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's why it was more about a cultural problem and not necessarily just about the specific politicians. He's speaking about a culture, whether he says that's what he's speaking about or
Yeah,
not.
people
It's
kept saying like, "Oh, we're coming off as elite from our interpretation of the song." I was like,
no,
I just think we're just interpreting it as more than just the government.
no. So what I said, so I'll say in this video, which I do truly believe, specifically when he's talking about miners and stuff, like,
Yeah.
people that work in mines, um, like the type of poverty he was talking about is not something we know, and we're not
Yeah.
rich, but compared to the type of people starving in the street, we're rich compared to those people, but most people are, you know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah, but also with minors, like I'm not gonna go and say I even know like what their financial situation is because I live in New York. I've never met a minor. I don't know anything regarding mining or their salary or their means of living. Like, I just don't know that. So, if you want to call me elite for like just not being familiar with that, that's fine. I just don't live in an area where that exists. I definitely don't claim to be wealthy, though.
Yeah, that's silly.
Yeah.
But yeah, my point was that he's making cultural critiques,
Yeah.
so he can say it's just about politicians, but the people bilking, welfare and eating shitty food, they're not politicians. So he's critiquing the culture.
No,
So
exactly. He is. But I think people just looked up his interpretation of his own song and just went literal. And
yeah.
yeah,
Well, even if you take it literally, he's literally not
not
just
just
talking
talking about
about
them.
politicians.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's finish this out.
Generations farming the ground. Grandson sells it to a man out of town. And 2 weeks later, the trees go down. Only got concrete growing around. I wanna go home. I wanna go home. I don't know which road to go. It's been so long. I just know I didn't used to wake up feeling this way, cussing myself every damn day. People have really gone and lost their way. They all just do what the TV say. I wanna go home. If it weren't for my old dogs and the good Lord, they'd have me strung up in the psych ward.
For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul?
There's 4 seconds left. I just want to make sure there's nothing else.
I just wanted to read that. No.
The dog. Just the dog.
Okay. So that goes along with like, what's the point of being so wealthy if you lose yourself and your soul in the process?
I'm blanking. That's not the Bible, is it? That's or is it the Bible?
I don't
That's
know.
like
We can
such a
look it
famous
up in a
that's
minute.
such a famous quote that I'm like, where is it even from again?
So now 4 generations farm in the ground. Grandson sells it to a man out of town. And 2 weeks later, the trees go down, only got concrete growing around. So he's talking about how, like, you could have a farm in your family for generations, generations, and generations. Like, your memories, your whole family's life is there, your ancestors' life is there. Like, you put, like, your heart.
Getting emotional.
I'm pregnant. I keep saying that, but it is. But also, it's really sad.
What?
So like, like they buy up your land and like you think like, oh, they'll take care of my farm. Like they're just gonna continue on the legacy even though I had to sell it. But like they just tear it down like it meant nothing and just build over it with like meaningless things like saying like concrete, like a building, like I don't know, like
So
apartment building, something.
so I don't know that the grandson that sold it necessarily thought that they were going to keep the farm going. Do you know what I mean? Like it, I think
But
he,
even just the fact that he has to sell it because he has no money, I think that's what we're going for. Like,
so yes, that I think that's the crux of it. So again, whether what he discusses or explains what he meant when he wrote these lines. So this is a type of like this is the thing that makes me think of like the argument about like automation and AI and people losing jobs that that just won't exist
well,
anymore.
it's also like farming. Like, I, it's just like,
There's more and more
so
machines.
I can't speak for much because I don't know like what farming is like right now, but I know that there definitely aren't as many farms as there used to be because yeah, like you said, automation buys it out, or like we start getting as a country, we start getting our crops from like other countries and so on and so forth. So like they kind of get shut out. Like people stop buying their crops and then they have to sell their farm and close.
Yeah, and there's like restrictions, like when it comes to like raw milk and stuff, like
Like
there's
raw milk
government restrictions
is
on
good.
farming and stuff. So yeah, so the sentiment is what you were discussing, right? There's like this long 4 generations, this farm has been in the family, and then the grandson has to sell it, probably because he's not making money, right? Needs the money, and then it gets knocked down, and it's just, pave paradise, put up a parking lot, right?
Yeah, it's
Like,
just like poisoning like good, wholesome, like American things and like American values.
yeah, so he's like all both of his songs and the verses, it's he's lamenting modernity and all the things that come along with it. Like he's longing for a simpler time, some that he was alive for and others that he wasn't even. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I can relate to that. I don't like where we're going right now. If we could just have stopped, like, I don't know, maybe like 2015, if 2014, 2015, if we just like took a break there, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. So his he I'm fascinated by him in particular and like what he views as these terrible things. You know what I mean? That
So he's not coming out and saying it exactly, which I think is smart because it leaves it up to like your interpretation. Like, what do you think he means? But also, I just don't think he wants because like it could be things that are viewed as political, things that are viewed as this, things that are viewed as that. And I don't think that's what he's going for with the song. I think it's just like, you know what I mean? Like he's not trying to identify anything. He's just trying to get his feelings about
no,
how the society has changed across, not necessarily about specific
no,
situations.
I agree. And he's come out himself and said he's not, political. And so to be fair, there's a tug of war going on with him that he's not intentionally a part of, you know what I mean? But so like the right-wing movement has jumped onto him because they connect with what he's saying.
Oh yeah, he does
And
express a lot of values that lean right, lean conservative.
at the same time, I believe it was just this morning I saw people were pulling up old tweets of his supporting Biden. So to be fair, he's not a partisan, you know what I mean? From
He,
what we know so far. You know what I'm saying?
I wouldn't
And
have thought he'd support Biden, if anything.
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But the content I do think is something all Americans could relate to. You know what I mean? some people might choose to say, specifically in the Richmond, north of Richmond, with the critiques of welfare, people would be like, other people might claim that that's a right wing issue or whatever, but he's just talking about the country the way he sees it, the things he doesn't like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And again, I think it's definitely politics. It's definitely the politicians. It's all that, but it's the culture. Again,
Yeah, that
whether
he's
he's
upset
saying it
with.
or not, it's the culture. It's everything around it. It's not just the people in DC. You know what I mean? It's like this has nothing. The farming with the
No.
farm, and then a businessman come
No,
in.
this song,
Like,
he doesn't, he mentions the rich men once. He's talking about he wants to go home, but also, just before we continue, I just want to get out the last few lines that we missed. So he goes into the chorus, but there's one thing added. He goes, people have really gone and lost their way. They all just do what the TV say. I want to go home. And then he goes again, if it weren't for my old dogs and the good Lord, they'd have me strung up in the psych ward.
yeah,
So they all just do what the TV say. I couldn't agree with that enough. No one really does their own research anymore. They just look at headlines. They watch the news and think that they're being informed properly. I can't tell you how much misinformation goes around about this or about that, like about everything. Like if you don't actually do your own research and get the information for yourself instead of just watching the news on the TV all day, you're not going to know what's really going on. I'm sorry, you're just not.
no, of course, and because well,
Especially if you just watch one news station.
yeah,
Like,
there's no such thing as unbiased news or sources of information. You know what I mean? What any side of the political aisle, there's um there's a selection bias in which stories you choose to cover and which ones you choose not to cover. That alone is an inherent bias. You're selecting which stories you think is important. You know what I mean? That's why you can watch MSNBC and Fox News, and they're both talking about real stories. I mean, that's even debatable, but whatever.
but it's opinionated,
There's facts about,
mixed
that
with
are
opinion.
real. But no, my point is just the stories they're choosing to cover are radically different.
Well, yeah, there are a bunch of stories that don't make it to either type of
That's
news,
what I'm
whether it
saying.
be conservative news or liberal news,
That's my point though,
and you don't hear about it.
that no matter what, there's a bias in what you choose to cover. And then there's the whole other fact of, you were just discussing, the fact where people are putting opinions in and all that stuff. But yeah, the people just listening what the TV says. So the thing that the first thought that comes into my head with that was the COVID lockdowns and mandates and the masks and the way people were disowning their family and friends because of their views on it.
Mm.
And
I
just because
lost a
that's what
few
the
friends for
just
it.
because that's what the TV said, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And people are ignoring,
common
facts.
sense.
That too. Yeah.
And it looks like it's about to happen again.
Yeah, and also I do think that what the TV says, I do think that can be, a general political thing, like MSNBC, CNN, and Fox, like that. Like people are dug into partisan politics, and like because this party says this, I'm gonna agree with it. You know what I mean? Even though I haven't really thought about it, it's just I got my talking points and my marching order, so I'm gonna do this because everybody
Yeah.
else
But
does
not
this.
only that, it's also like he's also talking about, I think, like maybe pop culture. Like you watch the
Good point.
Kardashians and it's like, oh my God, like I need to go out and buy everything they have or do everything they do or talk the way that they talk or like anything else like that. Like we're just glued to the TV, we're glued to our phones, we're glued to social media, we're obsessed with what the other person's doing, and we don't stop for a second to really just like enjoy life and like take a break from our phones. Like I made it a point to not really go on my phone that much anymore, only for a certain time period during the day. When I'm out with other people, I don't look at my phone. Only if there's like an awkward lull in the conversation and I feel uncomfortable. Like I it's so bad what we've become. And I know he hasn't really touched on technology in this song, but like it's got to be wrapped up in there somewhere.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Again, whether he had things in mind or not, he's capturing a sentiment, you know what I mean, and a feeling about, discontent with the things in the world that he sees as wrong, and it is, it's it's again, whether he ever says it or not, there's a strong resistance to change and modern America in particular, and all the things that are coming along with it. You know what I
I
mean?
feel that too, especially with like AI and technology. Like, I wish we could just stop here and not pursue anything further. There are so many things that I wish could just stop, not even here, but have stopped years ago.
Yeah. So there is one thing I do want to point out. So just technically, he did the same thing in this song that he did in the Richmond North of Richmond, where he starts and ends the song with the same line. So it starts, well,
Mhm.
if it weren't for my old dogs and the good Lord, they have strung up in the psych ward. He starts it. That's the first line of the song, and it's the last line of the song. But I do have to say, being that that's the last line of the song, it makes me rethink the I want to go home, right? Because like he starts with I
Wait,
want to go home. And then he's like, he's talking about, I don't want to wake up feeling like this, blah, blah, blah. But then he ends the song almost saying, oh, that's bad, but this has carried me through.
where do they put people when they threaten to commit suicide?
What do you mean?
If I were to say I want to kill myself, what would happen? Where would I go?
Probably the psych ward.
Exactly. So I think that is kind of what this song's about.
It
Because
sounds like
he's
it.
basically saying if it weren't for them, I would have killed myself.
Yes,
Because
but
he's saying I want to go home. Good Lord, take me home.
of course, no, I agree with that. My point is, so
I just didn't realize. I just didn't make that connection for some reason.
yeah, so it's interesting, strung up in the psych ward. So they're
He could
gonna
be talking
kill
about like
you.
straight jacket.
Yeah, which I think it
I
is.
don't think he means strung up
They're killed.
like hung.
So, but my point being was, so we were listening to it, and it started off with, if it weren't for them, for the good Lord and my dogs, right, I'd be in the psych ward, right? But then after that, he's saying, I don't want to wake up feeling like this. So it sounds like it's like more hopeless, right? But then the fact that he ends it with the good Lord and the dogs thing is, again, it makes me think like, yeah, I'm not that defeated. I still have something to help me carry through. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I don't really feel that that way anymore per se. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like
Like
he's
I
saying
can
like
deal
this
with
is
it.
how he feels, but like he's got God and he's got his dogs, so he's not going to do anything about
And he
it.
could deal with it and handle it. Yeah.
Yeah. I have my dog, see?
Yeah.
Say hi, boo.
Very funny.
But yeah.
Okay. So we did this last time too. We waited till the very end to even discuss the sound of his voice, like
Yeah,
all
people were
that.
like being like you didn't even okay, whatever. So yeah, we were breaking it down, but as we said in the other video, his voice is amazing.
Yes.
Very good. You can tell he's a lot of passion in his music. Like you can tell he definitely wrote these lyrics himself. Like I'm not even gonna look it up. I'm like he definitely wrote these lyrics himself.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone claiming
No.
otherwise.
And it's incredible. He plays his own guitar. I've never seen a guitar like that before. It's
Yeah, it's
very
cool.
cool. And it's just a great performance and he is really doing something that no other artist really does. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I agree with your analysis early on that the Richmond, North of Richmond, had more anger in it, but there was more anthemic, right? And this one's, it was a little more like melancholy and sad,
Yeah.
and some directed inward. You know what I mean? Again, he is talking about the world at large in this
Yeah.
song in particular, but there are things he's is looking inward and saying, I don't want to feel like this. Like I don't. Why do I wake up like this? Like you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah, like
interesting.
almost wishing he just didn't care, maybe.
Yeah, it's very interesting. His views are out there to bear. You know what I mean? Like you could see like the way he feels, and
Exactly.
I don't think they necessarily fit cleanly into an ideological box where you could say like this makes him a right wing person, this is a left wing person. You know what I mean? Because even in the Richmond, North of Richmond, he's like critiquing welfare and stuff. But then he was talking about some other things that it's like it's like social,
He
a
strikes me
little
as
more
like a
progressive.
libertarian, whether I
Could be.
Whether, yeah, he just strikes me as that, even though he says he's more like bipartisan.
Yeah,
But yeah,
makes
I think
sense.
it was great.
So yes, it's very good. I do think Richmond, North of Richmond is better, in my opinion. Not to say this
It's
isn't. It's going to be
different,
bigger. It's different songs. I think Richmond, North of Richmond is still going to be his like biggest song.
most
That's all I'm
likely.
saying. It's
Yeah.
very good though. It's very impressive and it's interesting. He's a unique new voice, and it's cool to watch it like happen in real time, like right in front of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so definitely check out Carnivore Snacks, SeatGeek, follow us on social media channels, like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys soon.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.